Oh, sorry. Try this again.
Afternoon. Good morning, class. My name is Paul, Giselle, Lorne, and Josue. And we're here, Jose, sorry for the inconvenience, but we're here to talk about night, which took place in Siget, Transylvania, which was a town full of Jewish people, which lived a young boy named Eli Wiesel, the author of the story, who delivers his story, his brief memory of what happened during the Holocaust. Right here we have Moshe the Beetle, which is like the town bum. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say bum, but he wasn't rich. He was really poor, but everybody loved him. And Moshe had got taken away to go work by the Germans in the forest. He told the story and stuff, and people didn't believe his story. So then, 3 years later, 1944, the Germans came to Siget, bringing peace, but what the people did not know was that the Germans was planning to take them away, which is right here in the slide to the left. The Jews hopping on the train, not knowing where they're going, just knowing that time's running out and they have no idea of what's going on. And then, after that, while they're on the train, they all just seek hope. That's the only thing they have to hold on to is their hope. Because they not know where they're going, they just know they're on the train, whether it leads to heaven, whether it leads to hell, meaning whether it's good or bad, they really have no clue. So while on this train, everybody's worried. They have no idea what's going on. They don't know where their families are because some of them separated from them. Eli himself separated from his mother and his sisters. He was left with his father on the train, going to who knows where. On the road to where they were going, a woman smelled burning flesh. She kept on calling out fire, fire, but nobody believed what she was talking about because they thought she was delusional. So, a while after that, after they woke up, they found themselves coming to, I believe it was Auschwitz, which was run by the Germans, as you may know. And when they get there, they just see themselves getting into what you would see as a refugee camp, but it's a concentration camp, which is basically hell. So it's not good. And they are given uniforms to wear, just like the slaves, which still exist today. And that's about it. So I'll pass it to Giselle.
Ella and his family arrived to Birkenau, where they were able to distinguish a horrible smell roaming the air. It was human flesh. There, they would experience the first selection where the ones presumed weaker would be killed. They lamented not believing Moshe the Beetle because he warned them that the Nazis were captivating Jews and killing them. They felt deceived by the Nazis because they were informed that they would be arriving to a labor camp where they would be kept with their families. However, the Nazis separated the Jews, and Eli no longer seen his mother or sisters. There, they were advised to lie about their age in order to guarantee their survival. The Jews begged God to have mercy on them. However, Eli resented God and felt abandoned, and this triggered him to lose his faith. He was later tattooed in his arm the numbers which every Jew prisoner received, and he felt that he was marked for life. The Jews dreamed of the day in which they would be freed. A lot of them wanted to move to Palestine, where they would start a Jewish homeland. They wanted to escape the atrocious journey that awaited them. Hundreds of Jews were being killed every day, and Eli no longer felt pity for them. He had to worry about his own survival. He was beaten by the capo, and this only made him feel tougher and learn to survive. He describes a moment after he survived the Holocaust in which he says that the world has not learned anything and humans continue to not have sympathy for one another. He describes the moment in which God was murdered for him. There was a young boy who was presumed to be the servant to two rebels for the Nazi, and the young boy was hung in front of his concentration camp. Eli could not believe that God would allow such an innocent life to be taken away. As the Jewish holidays approached, the prisoners began to praise the Lord, and Eli could not believe that they were praising someone who abandoned them and allowed them to feel so much suffering. They struggled with their beliefs, and Eli no longer felt that God was there with them. The Jews were being put under horrible experiments and work every single day. They felt that they were closer to death than actually being alive. They were becoming submissive to the orders in which the Nazis were putting them through. After so much suffering, the prisoners were becoming very vulnerable to infection. Eli caught an infection on his foot and it swelled up, and he was rushed to the hospital. There he heard rumors that the Russians were approaching and that he should be freed with them. However, he and his father decided to evacuate with the rest of the Jews and the prisoners, and they later...
Eli, with his swollen foot and his weakened body, many times felt during the death march that it would be better off to just lay down in the snow and die. But he realized that he had an obligation to his father, a need to stay alive, and to give his father hope. While in the death march during the night, they eventually came upon an abandoned village where they decided they would rest. The air was too cold, so they realized that they could not sleep, but they would take turns watching over each other's body to make sure that each other wouldn't die. In the middle of the night, a rabbi came by and he asked about his son. He realized that during the middle of the march, he'd accidentally fallen behind and they'd gotten separated. At the time, Eli said that he did not know where his son was, but later on he realized that he had witnessed the son abandoning his father and moving on ahead with the march. That gave Eli the necessary determination to realize that he never wanted to be like that son, that he never wanted to abandon his father. Eventually the soldiers made it to Gleiwitz camp, where they quickly rushed all of the prisoners into their bunkers. In the rush, many prisoners were trampled and crushed underfoot by the other prisoners. Some suffocated. Eli was among those that almost died, along with his companion Juliet, who he met under the group of bodies. When they finally escaped from the pile of bodies, Eliezer fell asleep to the sound of Juliet playing his violin. But when he woke up in the morning, he found Juliet dead and his violin crushed. The next morning, the soldiers decided to have a surprise choosing, where they finally separated Eliezer from his father. Not wishing to be separated from his father, Eliezer quickly ran to his father's line, and in the confusion started by all the prisoners trying to pick where it was that they wanted to go, they were able to stay together. So they would be together for a moment longer. And quickly, the soldiers gathered them up by the hundreds and put them into cattle cars. Inside the cattle cars, it was cold and damp, and they were all wet. They had to survive on only daily bread and spoonfuls of snow to drink water. While they were inside the cattle cars, one day they came upon a town. And in that town, some of the people decided to throw bread into the cattle cars, and the prisoners quickly started fighting each other. Two of the prisoners, a son and a father, quickly came to deathly blows, the son killing the father for the piece of bread, and in turn the son was killed by two other men. After witnessing all these horrors and tribulations, Eliezer imagined that he would never have to go through anything that badly again. But little did he know that hell was just ahead for him.
Now Eli's father was very weak. Not given water and food, it really set a toll on his body. And to be having to work as much as they did, and then sometimes actually digging out graves for their friends, it really took a toll on his body. So he began to lose his will to live, as well as his faith was already starting to break. And the only thing that kept them together was the bond that he had shared with Eli. Now, they really tried to protect each other throughout this whole ordeal, and they tried to survive each back together. Now, Eli's father tried to look out for Eli, and Eli sacrificed many things trying to survive, trying to take care of his father. Now this really struck a toll with him because it really messed him up internally because he began to struggle with the idea of letting his father go so he can be able to survive on himself and focus on himself. And it messed with him. Now, he didn't have to do that because through the night of that same night where he began thinking about it, his father had died by blows from an officer and prisoner alike. Now, Eli felt relieved, and this really made him feel less than human because he was relieved that his father had died because he didn't have to look after him anymore. Now, the sirens began to ring, and all of the prisoners were told to go outside. The Nazis began to panic, and what they did was they began to kill off as many Jews as they possibly could because what they knew was that the Americans were coming and that the Americans were close. These sirens were precautions. Now, Eli, both internally and externally, was all messed up. He was messed up. He was all messed up because all around him, his fellow people were dying, and he's just trying to struggle and survive for himself. He's trying to run away. He's trying to hide. He's trying to do as much things as he could. But now the Americans got there and they set him free. Now this gave him a sense of relief to all the prisoners, but it was also a very hard struggle because these prisoners had to pace themselves when eating and drinking, or if not, it can cause like really bad complications. Now, as the Americans were there, all around them was nothing but bodies and dismembered people, and it was really a traumatizing sight because as you get there, you see the struggles that these Jews had to go through and just the horrific things that they had to be a part of. Now, through the depths of the mirror, a corpse gazed back at him. Eli had spent years not looking at mirrors, and when he seen himself, he didn't know who he was, both physically and internally, because through this whole ordeal, it really messed him up.